saying hello. Hi everyone, can you hear me? Hadid CNA, Spuzi, Janella Point, Stella Den Asli, Luxilio Bafasta, Ganega Gra, Hubayang Kat and Spa, and John Asia, Slew, and Michelle Baker, Spa, and Renee Lapointe, Sue, and Emma Baker, Cian, and Willie Baker Inlay. My name is Janella Point. I am an Indigenous Rights and Climate Justice organizer from the village of Stella that's located in the northern central part of BC, so I am a long ways from home. I'm also a senior advisor at the David Suzuki Foundation, so happy to march with my colleagues here today and support this amazing event. And grateful to be here in Dojage and acknowledging in Dakaskana, in my Indigenous language, the traditional territory of the land. I said, this is the land given to the Mohawk people by Creator themselves. That's how I acknowledge in my way. And as part of my protocol, I also introduced myself in my matrilineal line, acknowledging my parents and my matrilineal grandparents, my Atsien, the late Willie Baker, who was a Black and Choctaw man from the southern states. But more than ever on today, I wanted to acknowledge my Tsu, my grandmother, Emma Baker, who is a Dakat elder. She was a language teacher. Hello? Oh, perfect. This one's way better. Wanted to acknowledge my Tsu, Emma Baker. She is a Dakat elder, a language teacher, an all-around badass, and she is a survivor of the Lajak Residential School and the Kamloops Indian Residential School, the site of the first 250 children to be found. And more than that, she's just my hero. She was widowed and left with 6 children from ages 12 all the way down to toddlers that were twins. And she had moved down to New Mexico State to be with my grandfather, and when she was widowed, she had to make her way with all of those babies back up to my homelands in the north central part of BC, and how she did it, I have no idea. And when she arrived, she was forced to put her children into day school at Lajak Residential School because the settler municipalities would not allow Indigenous children in their schools. And she forfeited her rights in the eyes of the Indian Act and the colonial government to her status, so she was not allowed to have a home on her reserve, despite our cultural being matrilineal and our leaders and our rights holder really being the women in our family and in our communities. But still, she worked so hard to raise not only her children, but so many other children. She was always having more mouths to feed. And there's so many people that call her mom and grandma more than just her blood relatives. And it was because of her sheer determination, willpower, selflessness that I was able to grow up in my homeland, and I do not take that for granted. And growing up, I come from this big, beautiful Afro-Indigenous family with a lot of cousins who were raised like brothers and sisters. And my Atsu would ask us often, she would say, do you feel like an Indian? Do you feel proud to be Inka Dene? That means people of the land in our language. And I would always tell her, yes, too, I'm proud. Even if I didn't always mean it, it's not easy to be a young Afro-Indigenous girl in a very white town and a very white school. But I wanted to say in front of all of you, for my Atsu, for myself, for all Indigenous children who are made to feel ashamed of their language, their cultural, their identity, to all of us today here still in 2025 who shrink ourselves out of fear of judgment or violence or lateral violence, to say, I am so proud to be Indigenous, I'm proud to be Dakas, I'm proud to be a Stella Tenseke, I'm proud to be a language learner, I'm part of the largest accredited language program in so-called BC. I have 60 students from both of our communities who are waking up our language at a time where our knowledge keepers and language speakers are passing away. I'm proud to be a land defender, a water defender. You know, that's something that's our birthright as Indigenous people. We're proud of our stories and our dances and our medicine, of the beauty of all of our cultures. 600 plus Indigenous nations across those lands. We have so much to be proud of. But what I'm not proud of, and where I think we should place our shame, is on our colonial governments who, after a full decade since the TRC final report, has only completed 14 of the 94 calls to actions. Shame. And now more than ever, we're in an era where Indigenous people are still being killed. Our women and Two-Spirit are still being missing and murdered. We're being tokenized, we're being scapegoated. Our governments have abandoned the TRC calls to action, abandoned free, prior, informed consent, abandoned justice for Indigenous people, and haven't even come close to touching land back. All for something that they call economic reconciliation. Have you heard of economic reconciliation? Boo. If you haven't heard it, I'm sure you will, because it's the favorite buzzwords of politicians of all stripes, of corporations from all sorts of industry. And when I first heard the words economic reconciliation, I thought, those words do sound pretty nice together. I thought, are we getting land back? Are we getting our cash back for all the wealth they've made on their broken economy on our lands? Does this mean that we get to enact our economies as Indigenous people, the ones that predate contact? But of course, that's not what it meant. It means that, lucky us, we get to assimilate ourselves into the same economic system built on our dispossession. Shame. Shame. That we are so lucky we get to partner on projects or revenue share. And this is not an accident. This is a political choice to offload reconciliation from governments to corporations, because it's easier, because it's cheaper to allow corporations to do the work of reconciling, to make private details, to give us short-term jobs, instead of the government touching anything on the matter of Indigenous sovereignty. But what we know is that corporations are not typically known for their generosity. They're not known for their strong moral compass. What they are known for is the cunning PR strategies they deploy in order to keep social capital, in order to keep the record profits that are made off of Indigenous lands and labor of all working Canadians. The same industry that knew they were causing the climate crisis decades ago and poured millions into covering up are now the ones we have to look to for economic reconciliation. What is with that? Shame. It is shameful. Shame on them. Shame for weaponizing the growing awareness about Indigenous people in this country to justify more extraction. And right now, nations are being asked to take on massive debts. They're asked to invest in projects that are financially risky, that are risk to our health, that are counter to our cultural values, like things like liquefied natural gas projects, an attempt to survive state manufactured poverty. And so I want to say today, my ancestors did not survive cultural genocide. My people did not survive residential school to be pseudo corporations. My people survived so I can be a salmon person, so we can speak our languages, so we can live in dignity. And right now the government is trying to stack the deck further against us with new federal and provincial legislation in so-called BC and Ontario to fast-track projects deemed in the national interest. They love all these buzzwords. And give us a seat at the table with the menu already set. So we must affirm today and every day going forward that Indigenous nations are just that, sovereign nations, not corporations. We are right holders, not shareholders. And we have our own culture, language, governance, and economic systems that have allowed us to be the only people who have survived sustainably on these lands from coast to coast to coast. And only when we're able to enact those ways of being, reconciliation will be real. So no to economic reconciliation. What we need now more than ever is some economic imagination, a new system that puts the well-being of people on the planet at its center, no to marrying reconciliation to corporate profits, free, power, and informed consent, and land back now. And my last words for the day, I want to say, when we say that every child matters, that means every child in every corner of the world. So from Turtle Island to Sudan to Congo to Palestine, may all of our children be free of genocide, of war, of corporate greed, of imperialism and colonialism. Every child matters. And I want to say thank you so much.
Can we get the steps, please, so it's just easier for people to come down and up and down and up?